again, and welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection Show showcases emerging indie authors who join us for a discussion of their newly published books. Join us for a conversation with our next guest author. Hello there. Thanks for tuning in to Author Roundup. My name is Emma, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Today, I have Stuart W. Rose, PhD, a registered architect and consultant to major architectural and engineering firms. He's designed and developed a net zero sustainable community that Finland's research has judged to be the most sustainable development in the United States. He is here to discuss his book, TD, Gaia and Me, Discovering the Surprising and True Essence of Sustainable Living. Hi, Stu. How are you today? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad for you to be here. So, sustainable living, let's talk about it. But first, let's talk about your book. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, let's see. The book was actually requested. This is going to go off. Okay. The book has basically the starting part is what I'd call the usual sustainability, heating and cooling and all the things you want to have a comfortable home.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I found is when we built a model home and said, here it is for sale, the number one reason people started buying it was the aesthetics, not the eco anything or the price.
Mm-hmm.
The price was about the same as any other traditional house per square foot. And yet we had almost no utility bills. Our only utility bill is Verizon, like what we're hooked up to right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'd spent a lot of time and money on specialists. How do we deal with the photovoltaics, and how do we deal with passive solar heating, and how do we do with emissions, off-gassing of materials? And the number one thing they wanted was pretty. And I think, and so initially it was like, that's it. And what I began to realize is what they valued more than all the ecological things. They weren't against those things,
Mm-hmm.
but quality of life experience.
Mm.
When I drive home at the end of the day and I'm pulling up to my house, is that a place I want to be? When I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning and look around, is that a place I want to live? And I said, well, when I think about it that way, and you never see that in the literature when they talk about sustainable living.
Mm-hmm.
And I
True.
remember there's a nearby university, and some of the students have been here as tours from their classes, and then they bring their parents by when they graduate. And one of them, we had a couple that said, we always look at the TV programs that have sustainable houses. At the end of each one, we look at each other and say, would we ever want to live in one of those? The answer is
Mm-hmm.
no, because they were putting up something that you could heat and cool and do all that easily, but they looked at it and said, I would never want to live in that place. And he said, this is a place where if I woke up in the morning here, I would be happy. I would jump for joy, ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found is the number one thing was beauty. And so when I talk about it, I have to live it. So I
Mm-hmm.
live in one of the houses, which most developers don't do. And everybody else here lives in it. And most homes resell the realtors say every 9 to 11 years. People
Mm-hmm.
will move for one reason or another. And yet in 23 years now, we've only had one couple that moved. They had new grandkids in upstate New York, so they relocated.
Yeah.
And that house sold in an hour the next morning.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They're just more beautiful to live in. And yes, we don't have a heating bill and a cooling bill or an electric bill. We have enough solar power for a house and a car. And so
Wow.
those that have electric cars, you don't have to pay anything. I've been driving electric for 12 years. It's great to drive for free. I mean,
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's
um,
amazing.
but the other thing that happened with beauty, and you're asking about the book,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just saying beauty is important in the book,
Mm-hmm.
I think the book had to be beautiful.
Mm.
And so we had to work a lot of times. If you've done much in the way of writing, like formal writing, when I did my doctoral dissertation, it was Turabian's book on style. You had to conform to all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a lot of work with architects and engineers in terms of their proposals. And Here they're trying to get a job from some client, and their proposal starts off with, "We are pleased to submit herewith," and it goes downhill from there. And it's
Mm-hmm.
boring.
It's boring, yeah.
Yeah, somebody needs to say, "This is boring." You don't start a book with boring. You don't start a movie with boring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted the book to have beauty. And one of the things I was taught as an architect is when you're doing a design for somebody, you get your floor plan, you got elevations, but at some point I've got to come back to you with, here's a picture of what your building will look like, your home or your office building, whatever it is you're having me design. And they call that a rendering, three-dimensional. You're looking
Mm-hmm.
at. And I was taught in design school, turn it upside down when you're finishing and walk back about 15 feet and then look at it and say, does that look appealing? So now you're not trying to judge the design. You're just saying, is the overall appearance appealing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a book written about, God, I don't know, decades ago called The 4 Minute Cell. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a woman who was getting her master's thesis on why do people make a hiring decision? What influences it? And what
Mm-hmm.
she found is that when you're going in to call on a client and you're trying to get hired, and it could affect dating as well. I mean, it could be social as well, but acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
62% of a decision is made as you walk in the room.
Mm-hmm. First impression.
30% was on the tone of your voice. Is
Mm-hmm.
this a
Wow.
voice that I found comforting? And only 8% on content. So her rule is in the first 4 minutes, don't say anything important.
Yeah.
They're getting used to
Because
who
they're
you are. And I know movies always like to have a great cover, or a great
Mhm.
poster for the movie. Same with books. If
Yeah.
it doesn't look good, you're going to take it off the shelf to browse it. So I
Yeah.
wanted the cover to be fine, but I wanted every page of the book to look good. When you
Mm-hmm.
open it up and turn it upside down and back up, because
That test.
I have a doctorate, so
Yeah.
I had to read a lot of research books, and some of them have brilliant ideas, but with long compound sentences and paragraphs that are half a
Yeah.
page long, and your eyes bleed by the time you've gotten through it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got to make a book that's easy to read, and where you
Mm-hmm.
open it up and say, this 2 page spread is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And what
so,
about the title? Can you tell us about what the title means and how it connects to the book's message?
ah, the book was actually requested. This is interesting. Okay, there's a physical part of sustainability, and we got into another part that is, I'll just say, non-physical. Around 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, we had been working on a vegetables for a garden. It was a 10 by 20 garden with 1 foot grids. So one direction was 1, 2, 3, and the other was ABC. So I could say, okay, let's put some carrot seeds in B3 or B4, or let's put lettuce seeds over. So we had it all mapped out. It was a real pretty day in April. Trina had everything all set. She went down to the garden, and I had some work in the home office. And so I'm working away. 20 minutes later, Trina comes back and says to me, I may need to be institutionalized. And I'm thinking, she's very perceptive, very bright. And what is the problem here? And she said, I went to plant things in one of the squares, like say B3, and a voice came in, a very clear voice in my right ear that said, those would do better in E4. And she looked around and there was nobody there. I said, what did you say? And the voice said, well, actually, why don't you just pick a seed and we'll tell you where it should go best? Wouldn't that be more helpful? And she's like, I'll be right back. And she headed back to the house. And that's when she said, I may need to be institutionalized. And I said, what is this voice telling you? And she said, where to plant the seeds. So I knew it wasn't one of these Son of Sam things, like you shoot this jerk. And she said, he's telling me where to plant stuff. And I said, well, can I ask questions? And she stiffens up a little bit and says, yes, you may. I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at Trina. So TD Gaia and Me, T is Trina, my
Mm-hmm.
wife.
Mm-hmm.
And Trina looks at me and says, yes, you may. Now, I know I'm not talking really to Trina, but I'm looking at her and hearing her voice. And I said, well, who are you? And she said, I am the Deva of your gardens. I said, what's a Deva? I mean, a diva is like an opera singer, but a deva, we are non-physical entities that look over a piece of land, an area of land, to see how to help it prosper.
Hmm.
And I am the Dave of your gardens. And so my goal here is to try to see if I can make things do better. I said, well, can I ask you questions? Yes, you may. And how I address you, are you a he or a she? He said, I'm a they. They said, well, depending on your question, on this side, we all merge. And the question could come from any other entity. So just the they. And I said, well, how about just D for Deva? And I said, that's fine. Because I'm saying I don't want to be disrespectful. This is a kind of a unique experience for me, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and D has been with us now for over 20 years. And what D said is they can read energy flow. D has
That's
become
awesome.
almost like a partner to us.
Yeah.
It's a daily type of experience that Trina and I are in constant communication with D.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
and so a lot of times we'll be building something, and this is you're asking about in the book or in the house.
The title, yeah, about the title, yeah.
Okay, so that's D.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, then we finished this project and everything was developed and the houses were sold and everybody's been in and out for probably since near 1920 or 17 or something. The last house I think was sold and moved into in just before 1920. And then one day Dee said, I'm hearing from another entity with a question for you. And I said, who's the entity? And Dee is like, Gaia. I'm thinking, are you serious? We're talking Mother Earth here? And yeah. Well, is Gaia like a fictional character like Santa Claus or real? And I mean, I'd be honest with you, if you get right down to honest, I don't know. And so I said, okay. And so I started hearing from Gaia. And again, I'm
Hmm.
looking at Trina, hearing Trina's voice, but now
Yeah.
I'm hearing
Oh,
Gaia.
wow.
And Gaia said, really concerned about Earth,
Hmm.
and I'd like you to do another book. So this book was by request, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, kind of crazy
And
story.
and she asked me if I could, and she is a gender, she's female,
Hmm.
and she said, I'd like you to do this as a personal journey. Just start with your youngest time, and that would have been when I was 8. My parents, and I was in Detroit, they shipped me up to a summer camp,
Hmm.
250 miles north of Toronto. And I was a good kid. Why did they want to get rid of me? But they set me up there. And the camp had things you expect in a camp, a swimming dock and sailing and canoeing, but
Hmm.
also canoe tripping. Because that area, and it was in Algonquin Park. If you go to a map, you'll see it, north of, it's about 100 miles east-west, about 75 miles north-south. So it's big,
Hmm. Hmm.
like a big state park or national
Yeah.
park, provincial park. And one of the big activities there is canoe tripping. Now, at age 8, first year, you're learning all the basic skills, but by about the fourth week, it's an 8-week camp. By about the fourth week, they're saying, okay, it's time for you at your cabin, with about 8 people to a cabin. You're going on a canoe trip overnight. So you're packing stuff that you're going to overnight and lots of mosquito repellent.
Hmm.
And you go across a lake and then across a portage to the next lake and you make camp. And it's a great experience, just the experience of the water and the making a campfire and cooking your food over a campfire and
Hmm.
all the usual BS that goes around with it, and keeping the mosquitoes off so you can get some sleep that night. Um, and then in the morning, when you're ready to pack, you've got everything packed up, you're ready to push off. What do they tell you? Leave the campsite better than it was when you got here.
Hmm.
Check the fireplace. Is there anything else we could do to make the campfire place better? Any other stones we could put around it or deeper? Are there any extra logs so if somebody comes along, there's some wood that they can start a fire with?
Yeah.
And you don't have to do major renovation, but
Just
make it a little
that.
better than it was when we got here.
Yeah.
And
That,
that's a rule.
yeah. That reminds me. So in your book, you suggest that our modern lifestyle is putting stress on Earth. What are some of the biggest habits we need and should rethink?
Well, number one, of course, is going to be the emissions. Um, Gaia can handle certain numbers of things, but the emissions right now are just, they're killing things off.
Yeah.
And the forecast for climate change, and some people say, oh, no, that's not real. Well, we are right now, as we speak, is
Hmm.
Hurricane Melissa,
Yeah.
and that's category 5.
Hmm.
They had Jamaica just had winds that were near 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Now that just wipes things out.
Hmm.
And so, and I asked yesterday, I said, D is Gaia is causing some of this. And yeah, it's good. I mean, and it isn't like Gaia is up there pointing a finger saying, here's a tornado, here's this. But what we're doing in heating the earth is causing these things to happen. And so
Hmm.
it's coming back. It's more like things like in a mirror. You're putting out some stuff, you're getting something back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I would say if you eat too much of a food that you really enjoy and you eat too much of it, you're going to get an allergy, right? Your body's going to give you a message, get off of that food,
Yeah.
more balance. So I don't want to call oil the enemy because with oil and the use of oil, we've been able, and Trina and I are not wealthy, right? We're just average, middle, but we've traveled to all 7 continents and we
Hmm.
do hiking trips. So you can get information on it, and then you can get reasonable airfares, and you can get where we live right now. We can get in a car, and I can drive places. We can do things that our ancestors, not 1,000 years ago, but just 200 years ago, couldn't do.
Hmm.
Because 200 years ago, people would live mostly in the town that they were born in, and as trains came along, they could go a little bit further. But oil has allowed us to go all over the place.
Hmm.
And then I guess say, now don't abuse it.
Yeah. Yeah, for
We're
sure.
getting too much of it, and all of a sudden we're affecting our climate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like you say in your book, climate change is not just an environmental issue, it's also a lifestyle issue, which I think
It
we should
is.
be thinking more of along those lines. Yeah.
A lot of people think if I have to adjust because of the climate, what
Hmm.
do I have to sacrifice in order to live sustainably? That's
Yeah.
the people where they were saying, I looked at this house and this program and would I ever want to live there? And the answer is no. And the answer is, and what I've learned, and our project here really is applied research. You
Hmm.
hear about these things. I said, well, let's try it and do it. And we found that these houses not only have they heat themselves and cool themselves, take care of the power. I mean, do everything except the communication system. So Verizon, we have a bill. The rest of them
Hmm.
we don't. But are they as pretty or prettier than a traditional house? That's the goal. I've got to make the quality of life better from
Hmm.
personal experience.
Hmm.
Is the site better around us? So, for example, lawns, grass lawns. Grasses don't put in deep roots. So you have to have something on a site when things are built so that you don't have erosion to wipe away all your topsoil. It takes a long time to develop really good topsoil for growing things. And so on our house, for example, we don't have any grass at all. We
Hmm.
put in our case, we put in golden tip junipers, and you put them in, and they're not that expensive when you buy small ones, the young ones. And you
Hmm.
put them in, and they're a couple feet apart. Next year, they're only about 6 inches apart. The year after that, they cover your whole front area. They require virtually no maintenance. Once or twice a year, Trina and I will walk around, see if there's any weeds. And that's it. We don't sit on lawnmowers. So
Hmm.
what people are doing now, for instance, the developers will put in sod or lay down seed, whatever is the
Hmm.
cheapest, and they're gone. And they
Hmm.
leave the homeowner with all the heavy maintenance.
Yeah.
Grass lawns. And then in order to make your lawn look good, you put some chemicals on it. So it's all really, really nice. And those chemicals, when the rain comes, they wash off. And now we got problems in our rivers.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so living with nature, with what's healthy is not bad for us, actually. We've
Yeah.
got,
Good for
I'll,
us.
I'll I'll put our houses and our site up against anything in terms
Yeah.
of aesthetics. And I think that's one of the reasons that people have stayed here as well.
Yeah.
I mentioned, I already mentioned, I think that where most homes turn over every 9 to 11 years.
Hmm.
You know? And here we've only had that one couple that moved up to upstate New York. And
Hmm.
other than that, 23 years. Everybody's and
Yeah.
why they stay? Because they say, where else are you gonna go to get this?
Yeah. Um, so what lessons from this project could other towns or neighborhoods apply today?
Well, there's one that I'm actually working on right now. Is subdivisions were started after World War II. Okay,
Okay.
they began, and we built the interstate highways then. And you probably don't know because unless you read about it, because they happened after you were born or before you were born. Um, there was a threat from of Russian ICBMs, missiles, and so we have ICBMs, but you can't get our ICBMs from point A to point B on our current U.S. highway system. So we need these interstate highways. So
Hmm.
fear, heavy fear based, and
Hmm.
Congress was passing all sorts of money to have our interstates built.
Hmm.
Now, it makes transportation by car a lot easier going across the country with interstates because
Right.
the old highways were 2 lane and you have to try to pass somebody, and so these are a lot easier.
Hmm.
But who is pushing them? Who wants you to drive more miles per year than anybody else? The answer is the oil companies. And you started subdivisions, and
Hmm.
there's a good documentary you can get. It's probably on YouTube or any of those called "The End of Suburbia," and it tracks all of this. But
Wow.
the goal of the suburb is for you to drive to the mall instead of walk to the corner store. They
Yeah.
want you to drive, right? So you're spending more hours per year driving.
Hmm.
And then we don't want you to drive efficient cars because it doesn't help us out. Well, so if I'm in the business to sell candy bars, I want you to have candy bar. If I'm in the business to sell oil, use more oil. But you can't advertise this car gives you less mileage than another. So what can I do in the car that's appealing that will make the mileage be less? More power. This car will go from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. Why do I need to do
Why do
that?
I?
Nobody ever
No
asked that
one.
question. This car will pull 18,000-mile loads. Why do I need to do that?
Yeah.
But they advertise
True.
that. So you get a big engine and a bigger vehicle because it takes more power to. And now I'm only getting, excuse me, 8 miles to the gallon, 10 miles to the gallon, where I could get 50 miles to a gallon.
Hmm.
And so the transition right now to electric cars, and I in 2013, I thought, well, if I'm advertising all this stuff, I ought to try one. Because when you grow up and you get a car, you don't ask what kind of fuel should I have. We have gas.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I mean, what's the option? There's no option. I don't even think about an option. You go to the gas station, you fill up. So in 2013, I bought an electric car. We had a Volkswagen that was paid for, so we said, let's keep that, but let's buy this electric.
Hmm.
And so I've driven it for 12 years. It's fantastic.
The same
Bad
one?
perfect, same one. Yep.
Nice.
Because you always say, oh, the battery will only lasts so long. Yeah, I'll tell you who sponsors those ads. Be the gas company, the oil companies. But the battery recharges,
Mhm.
and if it starts to go, instead of giving us, let's say, like the one I have only gives 70 miles on a charge. If it starts to go, it might only give 50 miles on a charge or 40 miles on a charge, but it hasn't. It's held the same. And the other thing, I got one of those little smart cars, 2-seater, because Trina and I are empty nesters, so we don't
Mhm.
need a big one. And it has a convertible top. I can press the button and I can make the top go down while I'm driving.
Wow.
We've had convertibles,
I didn't know that.
but if you're in a convertible with the top down and the rain begins, you get under an overpass, a bridge, so you can put the top up without getting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so this is one where I can put the top down. Actually, on a nice day, all of a sudden the sun comes in and starts baking you. So you put the top back up. But I
Hmm.
can do it by pressing a button while I'm driving.
That's
So the
great.
car has been a great car.
Yeah.
It handles beautifully. But
Yeah.
everybody had stillers like electric cars are slow or they're not. They're faster than gas cars.
Hmm.
When we're at a light, and Trina's a faster driver than I am, but when we're at a light, when it changes, she steps on the accelerator and we take off. It will push you into the seat. Really. I mean, they're
Yeah.
so I can't say a whole lot negative about electric cars. They're really, I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of just they're fun to drive. And the gas cars that we've had and the one we still have, each year you're spending about $800 for the annual maintenance,
Hmm.
spark plugs and you know,
Yeah.
the mufflers, tailpipes, and all the things have to get fixed. Electric car, all they do have to check your brakes like the same as in a gas car, but they check the battery.
Hmm.
So it costs us like $200.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so the whole
why
operation and maintenance of an electric car is a lot
wouldn't
less,
you
not
want
just a,
to? Yeah.
pardon me?
Why wouldn't you want to, right?
Well, we are all creatures of habit,
Yeah, that's true.
like grass lawns. When you really look at it, you say, why couldn't I do this other thing, which is a lot nicer, a lot more beautiful, and has less maintenance and less expense? But we don't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing with cars. It's
Yeah.
really difficult. And I mean, you can't scold people. Just go out there and change. But what I'm finding is the lure to get people to shift from traditional homes and traditional cars is going to have to be the aesthetic quality. Is it
Hmm.
more beautiful? Is it more fun?
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Um, you describe your book as both a memoir and a handbook. How do those two parts work together?
I didn't actually use the word memoir. Somebody else did.
Oh, really?
Memoir, yeah. But Gaia said, start with your life experience.
Uh-huh.
I said, well, how about when I was 8 and they shipped me off to summer camp,
Yeah.
and canoe tripping. And so the book actually starts there. And then as
Okay.
I finished high school, I mean, I got to be good in art for some reason. We always have certain subjects that we like and other ones that we didn't.
Yeah.
For some reason, art, I really enjoyed art classes. So everybody said, oh, Stu's a good art guy. I'm not a 10, I might be a 6 or 7. But I got into architecture
Okay.
and in architectural design and got my license. And I also have a degree in structural engineering. I've got the two at the same time. And
Mhm.
and then I got into practice, actually doing things.
Mhm.
And what I found is a lot of architectural practice is boring. Like once I give you a house and you're saying, I love this house, I've got to detail it so that a carpenter can build it, which means how do you put a handrail into the wall? How do you put the window? Do I fasten it this way or that way? So it gets into a lot of details, and I call them details, architectural details.
Mhm.
And doing handrails for 40 years as a career, not exciting. Making sure my roofing detail is good so your house doesn't leak. It's important, but it's not very creative and not very exciting.
Yeah.
I found after a while, this is not exciting. The early part going from a blank sheet of paper into something else, that's exciting.
Yeah.
But the other part wasn't exciting for me. And I decided, no, if it's not exciting, I don't want to do that every day. Right.
Yeah.
So I went from practice, I went back to get and the buildings I did, I didn't feel the community was any better. And I was in St. Louis at the time. So I went and got a master's in Seattle, University of Washington. And there's a lot of beauty in the Pacific Northwest. I really enjoyed that. And that got into urban design. Why do some communities feel better than others? The whole
Mm.
fabric of a
Well,
community. Like in DC, Georgetown, or in Philadelphia, in the cities that before cars. So the streets are narrower and the houses are closer together. Totally
mhm.
different feel. How do you create a community that has a nice feeling to it, not just an individual house here in
Yeah.
sitting,
True.
yeah. And so I got into that. And then that got me into a year or two of research, teaching architecture at Nebraska, University of Nebraska, and Cincinnati University. And then I went to Michigan State, back into Michigan, and got my doctorate at Michigan State. And that was organization development, which had nothing to do with design. How do you take an organization where it's stale, motivation, morale? Do I want to go to work today? Is this a fun place to work? And so
Mhm.
we got into that, which is technically totally divorced from that. But I bumped into a guy, a professor who was at Nebraska when they were having some kind of a big show. And I went
Mhm.
back to look at it, and he said, I could use somebody like you in my doctoral program. He was going to be my major advisor. I'll tell you what I've learned since with Gaia, and no, with D actually. And it's a great thing to remember. There are no accidents. It's
Ooh.
spooky. There are no accidents.
Mhm.
The reason that you and I are on this is not an accident. When was
Mhm.
it planned?
Sure.
Who knows? Something that was conceived years ago? I don't know. But there are no accidents. Why do we hit 3 straight traffic lights that are red? There's a reason. It's sometimes it gets a little spooky, but every time I've asked D why, Trina, for example, there's something about her energy that when she's in a good mood, we hit green lights all the way across the city. Not 50-50, but I mean 100%. And I said, what is going
Wow.
on? And Dee says, her energy, I said, her energy will cause the light to be changed? And Dee is like, yes. Not her mood, like right now, I'm feeling happy or sad, but
Hmm.
there's some energy that will actually affects the electric systems. And I can tell you, there's no way in the world that I'm going to be going across the city past, say, 10 intersections, that have traffic lights and have every one of them green. I mean, it
That's
just,
really cool.
so there are things that we just call woo-woo or strange,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there are flows of energy.
Hmm.
And so yeah, learning that there are no accidents is crazy.
Hmm.
So I got my Michigan State thing, we were being trained to be organizational change agents.
Oh.
And so then I got a job at teaching at North Carolina State. And here I was, a fresh graduate change agent. And what I discovered is that people don't want change. I'm
Hmm.
working with a group of professors. I became chairman of second year. So there were like 8 faculty we all taught second year design.
Hmm.
And we said, well, what are some things we might like to do? And so, well, what I've been doing is this, and they are not going to change.
Yeah. People get stuck in
And I've
their
been
ways.
doing, yeah, and you've been having success with what you've been doing, but maybe this one could be better. So
Hmm.
what I'm learning now is while they all have books about change agents and all this, getting in and changing, there's old stories about typists were told to go from manual to electric typewriters. And they would fight the establishment. No, that isn't how I do it. Once once they change, then they find out this is actually better. Look, it produces better product. It's easier to erase. I can do all sorts of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So once but how do you get somebody to flip from how I've been doing it to this? How do you get them to at least try, experiment, that type of thing?
Hmm.
And so it's causing that change is difficult. With
Hmm.
the housing here, in the newspapers, when we built these houses, because they're so unusual and
Hmm.
sustainability was so hot, we would have on an open house day, oh, sometimes 200 people coming through a
Wow.
house. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like here's an opening of a new Van Gogh exhibit, and everybody
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
like you're
That's
in a
so
museum.
exciting.
You could hardly answer questions. There were so many people, but I didn't have any buyers.
Yeah.
So then I had to say, well, who is open to this kind of a thing? And so I'm looking for people that, well, you're not going to get 18-year-olds to buy a house, 20-year-olds, and you're not going to get 70-year-olds necessarily. So who do I get that's in that middle that have an interest in buying a house, maybe, but also are more progressive, looking for something different, and may care about sustainability? Well, all media have a media kit, right? I think you
Mhm.
probably know about that, right?
Yeah.
Magazines do, newspapers do. Well, whose media kit has people that are in what I call professional age, mostly, more educated and more environmentally oriented? NPR.
Yeah.
So instead of the local paper, we said, let's put a little ad in NPR for the open house this next weekend. And what happened is we got slightly more people, but also people that were genuinely interested. They weren't just looking for a cute house to check out, but they're not really looking for a house. But we got people that were more interested. And every one of the people that we have here, if I had to say what's the differentiator of the people that bought a garden atrium, not just looked at it and said, "Oh, that's cute," but actually bought, higher levels of education.
Mm.
In the 7 houses, we got 5 doctorates.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
normal. It's not
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
And all but one have a college education. And the one that doesn't, his wife had a master's degree.
Mm.
So I'm saying, yeah, but you shouldn't have to have higher levels of education just to be able to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but at least what I'm finding is that the quality of life is the features are the ones that will cause people to adjust.
Hmm.
So, like India right now, I just saw an article this morning about how the air quality in Delhi, you can't see more than 10 feet in front of yourself. 10 feet.
Hmm.
Like if we're standing 10 feet apart, I wouldn't be able to see you hardly. The air is that bad. What's it like in your lungs?
Yeah. Oh.
And so what do I have to do to say this is not right? We have traffic jams and the emissions from our cars are doing this.
Hmm.
And we're using these chemicals on our crops, and the emissions from those are doing it. And I mean, they've got 3 different things that are causing the haze, and they're not changing.
Hmm.
Now, I'll tell you one thing that did change one city. Remember Beijing?
Hmm.
Remember the Olympics when the athletes
Yeah.
said, I'm not going there. The air,
Yeah.
air quality is going to
I
really
remember
hurt me.
that. Yeah.
Well, that embarrassed China, really
Hmm.
embarrassed them. Have they
Hmm.
cleaned up their act? Something fierce. I mean, they're producing electric vehicles at a huge rate, more than any other country, and
Hmm.
they are
Wake
changing.
up call.
Well, it's an autocratic system, and if the autocrats at the top say we've got to change, and they do it
Yeah.
because they were embarrassed, it's
Yeah.
changing. It's
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah. So when did you start writing this book and when did you finish it?
Hmm. Last year or two. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It only got finished a few weeks ago or maybe a month or two ago that I got
Yeah. Yeah.
the publisher copies.
Uh-huh.
Um, one of your questions is how long did it take to write?
Yeah.
Once I had the notion and the well, not directive, it wasn't that harsh, but when Gaia said write it and
Uh-huh.
do it do it as start it with as a personal experience. Write it
Hmm.
because as a researcher, you write third party.
Yeah, yeah, it's not super
I've never
personal.
written first person because I'm thinking, you want to know about me? Um, so I started writing it. And once I was writing it, it started flowing. It took a
Okay.
little longer to remember. I did take a class in what's called creative nonfiction.
Oh, okay.
Because a documentary can get boring with all the facts. And say, I want to have
Some
obvious
momentum.
facts, but
Hmm.
also it's got to be some personal interest. And
Yeah.
so I then started weaving in incidents that would make it more where everybody could say, oh, yeah, I've been there before myself.
Yeah,
And,
relatable. Hmm.
and that went pretty quickly. And
Okay.
then I had fun with a couple of things. Um, I had one area where I wanted to show that a big area could also be sustainable and still productive. So
Hmm.
I looked at where I went to summer camp, Algonquin Park in Ontario, big area, and the park is actually they do harvest lumber, but
Oh,
they
wow.
produce more lumber now than they did 150 years ago. They have a rule that says the lumber companies can harvest, but they cannot harvest more than the
Mm.
previous year's growth.
Oh, interesting.
That's a rule.
Hmm.
And so I said, well, how do we do that? Well, there's Paul Bunyan, right? And Paul Bunyan had his great blue ox, Babe, and there's a great theory, stories about Paul Bunyan, but people don't know about his brother Seymour. Seymour was not quite as good a lumberjack as Paul, but he was up in Algonquin Park and he worked with all the locals. And they did this and this, and so they harvest lumber from the park. They still do today, actually. That's where I did my canoe tripping. The
Hmm.
forests are still fine,
Oh.
and they don't clear cut a huge area. They'll selectively take things out. So the lumber companies are doing okay. They're shipping out lumber, and they're good industry, right?
Hmm.
And and uh, and yet the park is as good or better than it was 150 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's
So I put
good.
the story about Seymour and Algonquin Park, and
Hmm.
those long winter nights. His babe wasn't a big blue ox, So I had some fun stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then I put in here's the address you can go
Okay.
to find out what the actual um, the provincial like the royal provincial thing for the park, and you
Okay.
want a copy of their actual sustainability things.
Okay. Did you have a difficult part of your writing process at all?
None of the writing as much as I've written a lot of stuff, but once I had it in my head, I could just let it flow. So it's more in the
Nice.
wordsmithing.
Okay. Yeah.
I really wanted, if I can say it in 5 words instead of 15 words, I should. How do I make it easier for you? Or how do I take some words that are just a little convoluted and write it in an easier way so that the writing experience is
Yeah.
what the message is. It's like if you listen to a speaker and they're giving you great information, but their voice is boring or irritating.
Yeah. Hard
It
to
gets weird.
really
So
care.
I want the reading experience to be a pleasant experience. And
Hmm.
so like the font that you're using and the font
Hmm.
size
Yeah.
and line length. If it's too long a line, your eyes start to bleed between the lines. So
Hmm.
how do I write it in a way where you can read it easily and
Hmm.
find the thing? So the experience needs to be good. And each page opening has to say, this is a page I'd like to read. Like if you turn it upside down, it would still look pleasant, like you want to read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I like all the attention to detail and things that you thought about while going into your book.
Now, without bad mouthing them, the publishers have their word people, right?
Hmm.
Like the first people that look at your manuscript are going to be their editors.
Yeah,
And they're using like Turabian's book on style, or there's a Chicago book, but there's different standard
yeah,
books on
yeah.
style.
Style books, yeah.
That doesn't match my personal book on style.
Yeah.
So it took a while for me to negotiate with them and say,
Okay. To get a certain
sometimes
way.
a paragraph can be 2 words. No way. And then you go to the next thing. And well, there's another little trait. I mean, remember, I had to help engineers write proposals that were readable, that clients would want to read them,
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
right? Well, line length, I found anything longer than 6.5 or 7.5 lines made
Hmm.
it heavy. It felt heavy.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
unconsciously, you're saying, "Oh, this is a heavy paragraph." So I made sure 7.5 lines were the maximum of any paragraph. And
Nice.
the other is, how do I get you to want to turn to the next page?
Hmm.
There's a
Yeah, that's
technique.
important.
It's called the bucket brigade. You start a thought. The next step in this process, dot, 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 and then you have to turn the
There you
page. Or how are you going to achieve that goal? Next page. So
go.
you always
Hmm.
never end it with a period because that's the end. You want
Yeah.
to keep it going to the next page. And so whoever's reading it can flow easily. And
Hmm.
the book is like 95%. I was able to maintain a bucket brigade, 1 page hands out to the
Okay.
next.
That's
So
good.
now what happens is a reader doesn't know, oh, Stu's using a bucket brigade, but they're just going to read it and say that was an easy book to read.
Hmm. What's been the nicest feedback or review you've received about your book?
I'll tell you, the nicest thing, I went to the Amazon review things, and there's like
Hmm.
about 10 of them there.
Yeah.
They all scored it high. The a 5, I think, is the highest score.
Yeah. Nice.
But the things they said were really, I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, they're really. Yeah, I would just say anybody just go to that read review thing on
Uh-huh.
Amazon, and they were really nice. I mean, not just
Yeah.
that they're flattering or something like that, but they were because there were different things that they were picking, the great insights or good tips or I mean, but
Hmm.
if I had to say the summary, that's probably my biggest reward so far.
Oh, nice. And so who did you write this book for? Who did you have in mind reading this book when you wrote it?
Oh, who would I like to have read it?
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I could say anybody, but that's you're not supposed to have a target audience. It's anybody. Um, but it is really. It's like people need to be aware of. We're all living on this planet. We all need to do something.
Yeah.
And it's I could say, well, they're probably not kids that are 6 years old or something. But
Right.
um, I get asked to work at a nearby university. There's a
Hmm.
class on it's called In Search of Beauty. Well, that professor had me come in and do some things there because that's really what we're getting into. Another
Hmm.
one that dealt with sustainability. So I was in
Hmm.
there, and then we'd give them a tour of the houses as part of their class.
Mm, cool.
Um, but our college students can be buyers of sustainable homes,
Hmm.
and then could I get realtors or developers to do this? I don't know. The problem you have, and I'm experienced with it now because we took our life savings to build this. We risked our life savings.
Mm.
You take all your money and you buy a piece of land, right?
Hmm.
All of a sudden, boom. Once you've got the land, a bank will give you a loan for construction.
Hmm.
So that's not as tough. But you bought the land, and there's all your life savings sitting there, but you could resell it if you have to. Now you build a building, and so you're every month you're paying interest on it to the construction loan. What if it just sits there and nobody buys? So every month you're paying interest. And okay, 6 months, that's okay. 2 years and 6 months, that's
Mm.
getting to be less. Yeah. And some home builders that have been in business for 25 years, if they build homes and all of a sudden there's a downturn and their homes aren't selling, they'll go bankrupt.
Hmm.
So that's a risk you're taking. And because of that risk, or at least the perceived risk, is they don't change. What's a home builder going to build? Whatever sold last year. They don't change. If you
Hmm.
look at our lives right now, what's the biggest change in our lives today versus 20 years ago? Not 200 years ago, just 20 years ago. It sure isn't the architecture.
Mm,
You can't tell if that house was a 1970 house, 1990 house,
true.
2020 house. They're pretty much the same with very slight style differences.
Hmm.
But global wireless telecommunication, that changes our lives, right?
Hmm.
I can
True.
take a little handheld device and go anywhere in the world and talk to anybody anywhere else in the world. I can send messages, so I mean that's where our life changes have been.
Yeah.
So how do I get developers and home builders to make some changes? The one that I've got in right now that I'd like to do, there was an article I read, and I've been taking a class every semester at this university, just auditing, because I don't need any degrees anymore. And I'm on in sociology. It said there's this thing called suburban isolation. Remember, the
Hmm.
suburbs were designed by the oil companies or
Hmm.
fostered by them. They want you to drive. Well, how much relationship do I build with you if I'm driving past you? A wave? I don't really get to know you. And one of the specialists that I used when I designed the garden atrium development here was a firm in Milwaukee whose specialty is how do you make a dead community lively? And they said the trick is pedestrian cross paths. People have to
Mm.
bump into each other on a regular basis to get to know each other. So
Yeah.
in our community here, we've got the outer ring of the cars, that you drive in, and then you go into a house, and then through the house you come into the center space. Two-thirds of the site is what's called the conservation zone. Nothing else can be built in it.
Mm.
And in the conservation zone, you own your own house. It's called fee simple. The conservation zone, we have an HOA that
Hmm.
governs that by consensus. So if somebody says no to one of the ideas, it doesn't happen. But everybody says, yeah, okay, it happens. And so the conservation zone in our little site here, we've got a little park where you can run, and that's grass that had been there, so it gets cut.
Hmm.
Has a playground, has a boat dock, because we're only a couple miles from Chesapeake Bay. So we've got a little boat dock so you can take canoes and kayaks and stuff out there. We have a pond with a gazebo out in the middle of it, and vegetable gardens with a little greenhouse. So it has those things, but everybody, if you're walking your dog or just walking or anything out here, everybody gets to know everybody.
Yeah, that's
And
nice.
some people you strike a relationship where you want to get to know them more, and others you just wave as you go by. But they all know each other. And after one of the meetings, somebody said, this is living in community. I
Hmm.
said, all right, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I know everybody here. I've lived in subdivisions for 10 years and not really knowing my neighbors. Yeah, wouldn't
Yeah.
intend it that
There
way.
you go.
But here I know everybody, and if some reason I needed help, I could go to anybody here I think and get help. And if
Hmm.
anybody that lives here came to me needing help, I would stop what I'm doing and help them.
Hmm.
And that's something. The only way in which you can change developers or home builders is the zoning code.
Mm, yeah.
And in a lot of cities, you got your 25-year plan and all this type of stuff, but they're all based on that original plan from
Hmm.
the 50s, which are automobile based. So if I
Yeah.
can get those zoning changes to happen where they say you need to have a conservation zone with pedestrian cross paths by itself, that will make a big difference
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because the others lead to a lot of isolation. And when people feel isolated, they get more frustrated, and that actually can
Yeah.
lead to anger
Yeah.
and more
True.
tension. And there's a lot of tension out there right now.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if where people are feeling better about yourself, about your neighbors,
Community. Hmm.
caring, and caring leads to more compassion, which can eventually lead to more even empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will do a lot to change sustainable living
Yeah.
nationally,
Yeah.
globally.
Yeah. Well, do you have any personal or professional book goals for next year or even the rest of this year?
Well, my goal,
Uh-huh.
personal and professional, is about the same. Well, my goal is to cause more widespread change to sustainable living.
Hmm.
This little community really worked out well, as good or better than I could have imagined.
Hmm.
The houses cost the same as traditional houses, except there's
Hmm.
no utility bills, or one utility bill.
Hmm.
And everybody really likes being in them. Why can't I get 20 others done or 2,000 more done? And so how can I get, is there any way to get others doing it? So what I am trying to do is get zoning changes to cause the sites to change.
Hmm.
If I can do that, then it will increase, people
Yeah.
looking to do things that are more sustainable. So
Yeah.
that'd be my professional goal right now.
Hmm.
Personal goals, Trina and I like to walk places. And we've been to all 7 continents. And so where would we want to
Awesome.
walk? This year we did one walk in Labrador. Do you know where Labrador is?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Labrador is the northeast part of Canada.
Oh, okay.
There's the Labrador retrievers, the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you go Quebec and then out to, the different provinces, Prince Edward Island and up just north of Prince Edward Island. And then
Oh, cool.
Labrador.
Oh, wow. That would be lovely.
It was really pretty. The walking trails weren't as good, but it was really pretty there.
Nice.
And then we went to Glacier Park in Montana,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that was good. That was good.
Nice.
And I mean, there's walks we've done. I could tell you about great walks around the world. And I would say, yeah, what we're trying to look for is, okay, where else would you like to walk?
Hmm. I
Because
love that.
you're out there enjoying beautiful environments and great exercise at the same time.
Yeah. 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 Well, I think that's all the time we have. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention today?
One is maximize your quality of life experience,
Okay.
living in greater beauty and doing things you really enjoy doing. So at the end of the day, you can say today was a really good day.
Mm.
And next thing was leave the campsite a little bit better than when you got here. Campsite being planet Earth. You
Hmm.
don't have to overhaul it. You don't do crazy stuff, but if you have a home site, how do I leave my home site a little better than it was before I got here? That's
Hmm.
all. And then the last one is a Charlie Chaplin one. Laugh. A day without laughter is a day wasted. And I think people get really serious about all sorts of issues, and we got to
True.
solve this and just pay these bills and earn this money. Laugh. At some point, just relax and laugh.
Hmm. That's so great. Well, I've loved talking to you. You're a wonderful person, and thank you so much for publishing your book. It's such an important topic, and we just all need to do our part, and make the world a better place, and for future generations. So I hope people like it and pick up your book.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. And if you're interested in purchasing a book in sustainable living and would like to purchase Stu's book, then head to Amazon or Barnes& and Noble to purchase it. And if you do, please leave it a review. I know Stu would love that. You also can purchase it through archwaypublishing.com. We have an online bookstore. You can purchase it through there. And thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.